there. I am really excited to talk to you today. And have you ever wondered why the world is so judgy these days? Well, let's dive into that a little bit. When I was 10 years old, I was growing up in Missouri, and I was pretty headstrong, as most preteens are. I thought I had everything figured out. Like I knew which clothes were in, even if I would freeze my butt off in a 10-degree ice storm. And I also knew which music was good. Sean Cassidy was going to be the biggest hit ever. But I was not into what my mom listened to, the old music, like the Rolling Stones or the Beatles. I later found out she knew better. My dad was not around most of the time, which was actually a good thing. But there is one thing in particular that I remember about my dad. We were driving to his favorite place, the horse racing track. And I was in the back seat of his old Maverick, trying not to choke on their cigarette smoke. I heard this rumble in the distance, and it got louder and louder. Vroom! Two fighter jets roared over the top of the car. I slid to the other side of that hot leather back seat and watched them turn and zoom off. Oh, I felt that rumble in my core, and I knew someday that was going to be me. A few years later, as I was getting ready to enter high school, my dad's rages were getting worse. And one really awful night, I ran out of the house to my neighbors. When my mom came looking for me, I simply said, "You can come with me to California, Mom," where my brother lived, "or you can stay here and you'll probably die." We left 36 hours later. I go through high school, do all the right things, and senior year is here, and the day has finally come, and I'm ready. I stand up tall, I open the door to that recruiter's office, and as I walk in, the little bell dings. The captain, tall, clean cut, in uniform, shakes my hand. "Sir, I'd really like to talk about joining the Navy. I want to fly jets." He raises his eyes over his glasses. "You want to do what?" "You? Oh, honey, people like you never make it to be a pilot. I'm sure I can find you a secretary job." Now, I wish I could say that I had said, "Just watch me," but I couldn't. I got home. Mom puts her arm around me. "Oh, Susan, don't be ridiculous. It's time you went and got a job. You've got bills to pay." So that's what I did. I learned to play small, and I learned to play safe. Not only did that one interaction change the course of my life, but I've watched people that I love, family, friends, colleagues, struggle under the pain and anxiety caused not by cruelty, but by well-intentioned judgment. A comment meant to help, an assumption delivered as care, and a glance with the implication of not acceptable. People who meant no harm ended up leaving others with lasting effects of judgment that are profound and multi-layered. We internalize the shame and it becomes part of our self-concept, leading to negative self-talk that echoes the original judgment for years. We get anxiety, constantly scanning for approval or rejection, and we self-silence ourselves. People stop expressing authentic opinions and aspects of themselves just to fit in, not rock the boat. Well, those psychological impacts can lead to the following behavioral changes. You get risk aversion. You stop trying new things or pursuing new opportunities. And that could be in your personal life or your business life. Perfection becomes an armor around you because you are trying to be beyond reproach in all areas. People pleasing and loss of boundaries is also another impact that it has, and social withdrawal. The effects can linger. Careers are impacted, relationships are damaged because you don't have trust, and a sense of disconnection that's invisible but deeply felt. Often, the person speaking has no idea of the ripple that they've created. But consider this: have we always been this judgy? Yes. Humans have actually been incredibly judgmental throughout history. Our brains evolved to make rapid judgments as a survival tool, quick assessments of friend or threat, safe or dangerous. This is what kept our ancestors alive. The problem is, our ancient brains are now operating in modern contexts where these snap judgments are often unnecessary and actually harmful. Think about how people were I can't even say the word, ostracized back in the day. They were exiled or worse for relatively minor transgressions. There was public shaming, there was stoning, there were scarlet letters, and their reputations were ruined in society for a single mistake. That was the norm. So, what has changed in these days? Well, the visibility is amplified. We all know how social media, there's thousands of snap judgments. And instead of hearing gossip from our immediate community, it's spread globally. Every opinion is broadcast and preserved, and the stakes feel higher. Public shaming, it can go viral, and people will permanently see this online. In some ways, we're both more tolerant, but we're more exposed to judgment, and echo chambers intensify it. Social media is great at creating our community, but what it is clusters of like minded people. So you get fed the same type of thoughts that maybe you made a comment on, and they just reinforce our judgments, making all of us feel more righteous in what we believe. But here's something hopeful: we are also living in an era with unprecedented movements toward acceptance of, of different lifestyles, different identities, and choices that would have been unthinkable decades ago. We often talk about kindness as a virtue, but awareness is where it begins. I have made it my mission to raise awareness about how we are all judgmental, not to shame, but to invite awareness. Awareness is where empathy begins, and empathy is what will heal the divide that judgment creates. Imagine what could shift in our homes, our workplaces, and our communities if we learned to see before we judged. Pause, be curious, listen, ask questions, and observe. Don't write the ending before you know the whole story. For example, notice the difference between she arrived 20 minutes late. That's a fact. Or she is so disrespectful and unreliable. That's a judgment. The first leaves room for understanding. Maybe her baby had a major problem before she left the house, or maybe she had car trouble. The second closes it off, doesn't even give room for an explanation. We can change that story, one interaction at a time. So we've established that judgment isn't new, but its reach and its permanence have never been greater. And yet, we rarely stop to consider the profound imbalance at the heart of every act of judgment. Think about the math for a moment. When we judge someone, when we post a critical comment or share that dismissive take, make that cutting remark, we might feel a brief spark of satisfaction, a moment of feeling right, of feeling superior, of bonding with others who might agree. We actually get a hit of dopamine during that moment. we are chemically rewarded. Maybe it lasts a few seconds, maybe a few minutes, and then we scroll on. We move on about our day, and by tomorrow, we've likely forgotten what we even said. But for the person on the receiving end, that judgment can echo for days, months, years. It becomes the voice that they hear in their head at 3 a.m. It's the reason they don't speak up in the meeting. And it's why they don't wear what they love and don't do what excites them and don't show up as their full selves. One careless judgment that cost us nothing when we said it and gave us almost nothing can reshape someone's entire sense of who they are. They start pretending. I told you earlier about my own experience with judgment, being told I was not the right type to become a pilot. That recruiter who judged me, he probably forgot about it the next day, but I carried it for years, always thinking I wasn't good enough and choosing what was easy or safe instead of taking a risk. Fleeting satisfaction for the judge, lasting harm for the judged. So here's what I'm asking you to do, and I'm challenging myself as well. Pause before you judge. When that critical thought forms, when your fingers hover over the board to post that harsh comment, think to yourself, is this fleeting moment right? And is it worth the lasting weight that it might impact on another human being? Because chances are we don't really know the person on the other end. I also want you to get curious instead of critical. Replace "they're so rude" instead of replace it with "I wonder why they're so short right now." Replace certainty with curiosity. There's almost always a story you don't know, a context you can't see, and a struggle that's invisible. And remember your own story. You know, and I know what it feels like to be on the receiving end of judgment. We've all experienced it. And you know how those words can stay with you. Let that memory be your guide. And here's the beautiful thing. When we release judgment, we don't just free others, we free ourselves because judgment is actually exhausting. It keeps us tense, disconnected, and small. Choosing compassion over judgment doesn't make us naive or permissive. It makes us human. The choice is ours. And here's what I've realized. This doesn't have to be a solo journey. I've made it my purpose and my mission to change the way that we judge, but I can't do it alone. And honestly, I don't want to. This is something we can do together. I have been collecting stories my whole life, and those who trust me enough to tell me those stories, I've decided to turn that into a podcast. We are done pretending. And this podcast will launch November 25th on all platforms. Join me and hear these amazing stories of how people just like you have overcome judgment and shame that they felt. And if you have a story worth sharing, let me know. Someone needs to hear it. My email is susan@susan-houston.com. You already know what judgment feels like. You've carried it. I've carried it. So you already have everything you need to be part of this change. Together, we can create something different, something kinder, and something that actually feels good to be a part of. I can't wait to see the impact that we will create together. And together, we don't just wait for change, we become it. Thank you.